The brass lock clicked into place with a sound that meant freedom. I leaned my forehead against the cool glass door of ember and oak, watching the rain blur the streetlights outside into halos of amber and gold. Midnight had come and gone an hour ago, and my feet ached in a way that promised I'd feel every step tomorrow. Tuesday nights were always slow, but tonight had dragged like a prison sentence, 3 customers in 6 hours, all nursing cheap beer and cheaper conversation. I turned back to survey my kingdom of empty tables and overturned chairs, the sharp scent of lemon cleaner still hanging in the air. One more wipe down of the bar, one more check of the register, and I could finally go home to my shoebox apartment and the leftover Thai food waiting in my fridge. The knock came as I was counting the till. 3 deliberate raps against the glass, not urgent, not aggressive, but somehow absolute, the kind of knock that expected to be answered. I froze, my fingers still wrapped. Around a stack of 20s, we were closed. The sign said closed. The lights were dimmed, the door was locked, and I was a 26-year-old woman alone in a bar at 1 in the morning in a neighborhood that got sketchy after dark. Every instinct screamed at me to ignore it. I looked up anyway. The man on the other side of the glass door stood perfectly still beneath the awning, rainwater streaming past him like a curtain. Even through the distortion of the glass and the dim lighting, I could see he was tall, over 6 feet, shoulders broad beneath a dark coat that probably cost more than my car. His hands were in his pockets, his posture relaxed, but there was something about the way he held himself that made the space around him feel smaller, dangerous. He tilted his head slightly, and I caught the sharp lines of his face, strong jaw, straight nose, dark hair pushed back from his forehead. And his eyes, even from 15 feet away, even through glass and shadow, I felt the weight of his gaze like a physical touch. He knocked again. The same 3 measured beats. My heart hammered against my ribs as I crossed the floor, my sneakers silent on the worn wood. I stopped a few feet from the door, close enough to be heard but not close enough to unlock it. "We're closed," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. I can see that. His voice was low, controlled, with an edge that suggested he wasn't used to hearing the word no. "I'm asking for an exception." "No exceptions. There's a liquor store 2 blocks down that's open until 2. I don't want liquor store whiskey." He stepped closer to the glass, and I saw his face clearly now. God, he was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that felt like a warning. Sharp cheekbones, a mouth that probably smiled rarely and devastatingly, and eyes so dark they looked black in the low light. "I want 1 drink, 1 conversation, then I'll leave." "You'll leave now," I said, but my hand was already moving toward the deadbolt. Some traitorous part of me wanted to know what kind of man knocked on locked doors at 1 in the morning and expected them to open. "Please." The word stopped me. It sounded wrong in his mouth, too soft, too honest, like he'd pulled it from somewhere deep and unfamiliar. I should have walked away. Should have called the police, or at least pretended to. Should have done anything except slide the deadbolt free and pull the door open 6 inches, just enough to feel the cold night air rush in and see him up close. 1 drink, I heard myself say. That's it. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. That's all I need. I stepped back and let him in. He moved past me with the careful grace of a predator, water droplets falling from his coat onto my clean floor. I locked the door behind him, force of habit, or maybe self-preservation, and turned to find him already at the bar, shrugging out of his coat to reveal a black shirt and shoulders that confirmed every suspicion the coat had hinted at. "What's your poison?" I asked, moving behind the bar because it felt safer with wood and distance between us. "Whiskey. Neat. Your best bottle." I reached for the Macallan 18 on the top shelf, the bottle we saved for high rollers and special occasions. My boss would kill me for pouring it without charging, but something told me this man wouldn't take kindly to being handed a bill. I poured 2 fingers and slid it across the bar. He caught it without looking, his eyes never leaving my face. "You're nervous," he observed. "You knocked on a locked bar at 1 in the morning." "I'm cautious, not nervous." "Smart." He lifted the glass but didn't drink. "What's your name?" That wasn't part of the deal. "Humor me." I crossed my arms. "Elena. Elena." He said it slowly, like he was testing the weight of it. I don't want to know." I cut him off. Because some part of me already knew this wasn't just a man looking for a drink. This was a man who commanded rooms and made decisions that changed lives. And knowing his name would make whatever was happening here real. His eyes darkened with something that might have been amusement or might have been danger. "Afraid?" "Careful. There's a difference. There is when you're a woman alone with a stranger. He took his first sip of whiskey, and I watched his throat work as he swallowed. You let me in. You said please. And if I hadn't? I met his gaze and felt something electric pass between us, acknowledgement, perhaps, or recognition. Then I would have called the cops and let you stand in the rain. He set the glass down with a soft click. I don't think you would have. You don't know me. No. His voice dropped lower, intimate and absolute. But I will. The words hung in the air between us like a promise and a threat, and I felt my breath catch in my chest. This was insane. I didn't know this man. Didn't know why he was here or what he wanted or why every cell in my body was screaming at me to run and stay in equal measure. Why are you really here? I asked. He studied me for a long moment, and I had the unsettling feeling he was seeing past every wall I'd ever built. Because I needed to meet you. You don't even know me. I know enough. He stood, leaving the whiskey half finished, and I realized with a start that he was leaving. Thank you for the drink, Elena. He walked to the door, and I should have felt relief, should have been grateful he was going. Instead, I felt a strange sense of loss, like something important was slipping through my fingers. He paused with his hand on the deadbolt, looking back at me over his shoulder. Someone's been watching you. The man in the gray sedan. He's been outside every Tuesday night for 3 weeks. My blood went cold. What? Lock your doors. All of them. And Elena? His eyes held mine, and I saw the truth of what he was in their depths, power and violence, and something that made my stomach flip. When I come back, you'll let me in again. He disappeared into the rain before I could find my voice. I stood frozen behind the bar, my heart racing, my mind spinning. I looked toward the front window and saw nothing but darkness and rain. But somewhere out there, I knew he was right. And I knew, with a certainty that terrified me, that he would come back. And when he did, I would open the door. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in my apartment building became a threat. Footsteps in the hallway, the groan of old pipes, the wind rattling my fire escape. I sat on my couch with all the lights on and my phone in my hand. Google search bar empty because I didn't even know what to look for. Man who shows up at bars after midnight and knows things he shouldn't. How to tell if you're being watched? Am I losing my mind? When dawn finally broke gray and cold through my windows, I was still wearing yesterday's clothes and my eyes felt like sandpaper. I showered, dressed in jeans and my favorite green, sweater armor disguised as comfort, and headed to the one place that always made sense. My brother's gym sat wedged between a bodega and a dry cleaner in a neighborhood that was trying hard to gentrify but hadn't quite made it yet. The sign outside said Marcos's Boxing and Fitness, in faded red letters, and the windows were covered with posters for upcoming amateur fights. I found Marco in the ring, working the heavy bag with the kind of focused violence that meant he was thinking too hard about something. Sweat darkened his gray tank top, and his knuckles were wrapped in black tape. You look like hell, Lena, he said without looking up. Good morning to you too. He hit the bag 3 more times. Jab, cross, hook, then turned to face me, breathing hard. My older brother had inherited our father's broad shoulders and our mother's dark eyes, and right now those eyes were studying me with the kind of attention that made me want to squirm. What happened? I climbed through the brained ropes and sat on the edge of the ring. If I asked you about people watching other people, like surveillance, would you know anything about that? Marco's expression shifted, not quite alarm, but close. He grabbed a towel and wiped his face. Elena, what the hell is going on? Just answer the question. Are you in trouble? I don't know. The honesty of it surprised me. Maybe. Someone told me I'm being watched. A man in a gray sedan, Tuesday nights, outside the bar. Someone told you. Marco's voice went flat. Who? I hesitated, because how did I explain last night? The stranger with the expensive coat and dangerous eyes? The way he'd looked at me like he already knew every secret I'd ever kept? A customer, I said finally. He came in late. Said he'd noticed someone watching the bar. Watching me. Marco was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call, turning away from me slightly. I caught fragments, gray sedan, Tuesday. Outside, Ember and Oak, before he hung up and faced me again. Stay here, he said. Marco. I'm serious, Elena. Don't go to work tonight. Don't go home alone. Stay here until I figure out what's going on. Fear crystallized in my chest, sharp and cold. You know something. I know that people don't watch other people for no reason. He climbed out of the ring, already pulling on a hoodie. And I know that if someone's targeting you, I need to know why. Targeting me? Marco, you're scaring me. He stopped, his expression softening slightly. Good. Be scared. Be careful. And Elena? He waited until I met his eyes. This customer who told you. You get a name? I shook my head. Description? Tall, dark hair, expensive clothes, eyes like... I trailed off. Because how did I describe the way he'd looked at me? Like I was a problem he intended to solve, or a prize he'd already claimed. Like he was used to people doing what he wanted. Something flickered across Marco's. Face recognition, maybe, or dread. Stay here, he repeated. I'll be back in an hour. He left before I could argue, and I was alone in the empty gym with the smell of sweat and leather, and the growing certainty that my life had just become complicated in ways I didn't understand. I pulled out my phone and did what I should have done hours ago. I searched for gray sedans and surveillance and stalking, and found nothing but generic advice about calling the police and varying your routine. Then, because I couldn't help myself, I searched for something else. Powerful men, Seattle organized crime. The results made my stomach drop. There were dozens of articles, some from reputable news sources, others from true crime blogs and conspiracy sites. Names I didn't recognize attached to businesses that sounded legitimate but felt wrong. References to family operations and territorial disputes and ongoing federal investigations. And photos. I scrolled through image after image of men in expensive suits at charity galas and courthouse steps, their faces carefully neutral, their lawyers always close. None of them looked familiar. Until I reached the 4th page of results and saw him. The photo was from 2 years ago, taken outside a restaurant downtown. He wore a dark suit and was climbing into the back of a black car, his face turned slightly toward the camera. The caption read, Dante Caruso, alleged head of the Caruso crime family, leaving dinner at Canlis. Federal prosecutors have yet to bring charges despite ongoing investigation. Dante Caruso. I stared at the photo, my heart hammering, because even in a grainy news image, even with 2 years between then and now, I recognized him. The sharp jaw, the dark eyes, the way he held himself like gravity bent around him instead of the other way around. The man who'd knocked on my door last night was a Mafia boss, and he'd told me I was being watched. My phone buzzed in my hand, and I nearly dropped it. Unknown number. I stared at the screen for 3 rings before I answered. Elena. His voice was exactly as I remembered, low, controlled, absolute. We need to talk. How did you get this number? That's not important right now. Where are you? I should have hung up. Should have called the police or my brother or anyone except the man who'd somehow found my private number in less than 12 hours. I'm at my brother's gym, I said instead, and hated how steady my voice sounded. Good. Stay there. Don't leave until I arrive. I don't take orders from you. No. I heard something shift in his tone, something almost like approval. But you're smart enough to take advice when your life might depend on it. The line went dead. I sat in the empty ring, surrounded by punching bags and the ghost of my own breathing, and knew with absolute certainty that everything was about to change. The door was already open. I just hadn't realized I'd been the one to unlock it. He arrived in black car, black suit, black expression that made the air in Marco's gym feel heavier. I watched through the front window as the Mercedes pulled up to the curb with the kind of precision that spoke of a driver who'd done this 1,000 times. Dante stepped out, and even from 30 feet away I could see the way people on the street gave him space without seeming to realize they were doing it. The door chimed as he entered. Marco had returned 10 minutes earlier, tense and angry, with information he wouldn't share and instructions I'd refused to follow. Now he stepped between me and Dante like a human wall, his shoulders squared, his fists clenched. You need to leave, Marco said. Dante's gaze flicked to my brother, then passed him to me. Elena and I need to have a conversation. She doesn't need anything from you. Marco. I touched my brother's arm, and he turned to look at me with an expression that was part anger, part fear. It's okay. It's not okay. Do you know who this is? Yes. The admission tasted bitter. I know. Dante waited, perfectly still, as Marco warred with himself. Finally, my brother stepped aside but didn't leave. You have 5 minutes, and I'm staying right here. Fair enough. Dante moved closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something dark and expensive that probably had a name like danger or poor decisions. He stopped at the edge of the ring where I still sat, looking up at me with those impossibly dark eyes. The man watching you is named Viktor Popov. He works for the Bratva Russian organized crime. Do you know why he'd be interested in you? My mouth went dry. No. Think carefully. I serve drinks in a neighborhood bar. I live in a one-bedroom apartment with a broken dishwasher. I have student loans and a gym membership I barely use, and absolutely nothing that anyone like that would want. Everyone has something, Dante said quietly. The question is, what they think you have. Behind him, Marco made a sound like a growl. This is your world. Your mess. Keep her out of it. I'm trying to. Dante's attention never left my face. But someone's already dragged her into it, and I need to know why. Then figure it out without involving her. I can speak for myself, I snapped, surprising both of them. I climbed down from the ring and faced Dante properly, refusing to be intimidated by the 6 inches he had on me, or the aura of controlled violence that surrounded him like a second skin. What do you want from me? Information, protection, cooperation. In exchange for what? His mouth curved slightly. Your life. The words hung in the air like a blade, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You're saying someone wants to kill me. I'm saying Viktor Popov doesn't watch people for entertainment. He watches them because his boss tells him to, and his boss doesn't waste resources on civilians unless they're useful or dangerous. I'm neither. Then we need to figure out why he thinks you are. Marco stepped forward, his face dark. This is insane. Elena, call the police. Get a restraining order. Don't get involved with... The police can't protect her from the Bratva, Dante interrupted, his voice cutting through Marco's protest like a knife. The police can't even find the Bratva when they want to. But I can. Because you're exactly like them. No. Dante's expression hardened. I'm worse. Which means I'm the only chance your sister has of surviving whatever she's stumbled into. I looked between them, my brother, who'd protected me since our father died, and our mother retreated into grief, and this stranger who'd appeared in my life like a storm, bringing danger and dark promises. What do you need from me? I asked Dante. Elena? No. Marco, stop. I held up a hand without looking at him. I need to understand what's happening. And he's right, the police aren't going to help with this. Dante studied me for a long moment, and I had the unsettling sensation of being evaluated, measured against some standard I didn't understand. I need you to trust me. Come with me somewhere safe while I investigate. Let me protect you. Go with you where? My home. It's secure, private, and no one gets in or out without my knowledge. Marco laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want her to move into your house, to be under your control. That's not protection, that's imprisonment. It's temporary, Dante said, and it's the only option that doesn't end with Elena bleeding out in an alley because she thought she was safe. The brutal honesty of it made me flinch. This was real. Not a thriller novel or a true crime podcast, but my actual life, which had somehow become tangled with the kind of people who made bodies disappear. How long? I asked. As long as it takes to eliminate the threat. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He pulled a phone from his pocket, sleek, black, probably encrypted, and held it out to me. This is secure. The only number programmed in it is mine. If anything happens, if you feel unsafe for even a second, you call me. Immediately. I took the phone, and our fingers brushed. The contact was brief, electric, and I pulled back like I'd been burned. Think about it, Dante said. But don't take too long. Victor's patient, but his employers aren't. He turned to leave, and I heard myself say, Why do you care? He stopped, his back to me, and for a moment I didn't think he'd answer. Then, he looked over his shoulder, and something in his expression made my breath catch. Because the world has enough victims, he said quietly, and you don't deserve to be one of them. Then he was gone, leaving behind the scent of expensive cologne and the weight of an impossible choice. Marco immediately started arguing, telling me all the reasons I couldn't trust Dante Caruso, couldn't go with him, couldn't throw my life away on the word of a criminal. But I was barely listening. I was staring at the phone in my hand, feeling the weight of it like an anchor, and wondering what it said about me that I was already mentally packing a bag. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. I was beginning to think I'd been standing on the wrong side of one my entire life. The decision took 3 hours and felt like 3 years. I spent them in Marco's apartment above the gym, listening to him list every reason this was a terrible idea, while I tried to figure out if staying alive was worth stepping into a world I'd spent my whole life avoiding. In the end, it was the gray sedan that decided me. Marco went downstairs to lock up the gym around 8, and I watched from his window as the car rolled past, slow, deliberate, the driver's face hidden behind tinted windows. It circled the block twice before disappearing, and something about that patient, predatory movement made my decision for me. I called the number Dante had programmed into the secure phone. He answered on the first ring. "Elena, I'll come, but I have conditions." "Name them." "I keep my phone, the real one, and I need to be able to contact my brother whenever I want." "Agreed. And you tell me everything. No secrets, no lies, no protecting me from the truth because you think I can't handle it." There was a pause, and I wondered if I'd pushed too far. Then, "Agreed. I'll send a car in 20 minutes. I can drive myself. Not in a vehicle Victor knows, and not alone." His voice softened slightly, though it still held that edge of command. "Elena, let me do this right." The car that arrived was different from the Mercedes, a dark SUV with windows tinted so black I couldn't see inside. The driver was a woman, which surprised me, with short blonde hair and the kind of body that suggested she could break bones without breathing hard. "I'm Sarah," she said as I climbed into the back. "Seatbelt." Marco stood on the sidewalk, watching with an expression that broke my heart. I'd promised him I'd be careful, that I'd call every day, that this was temporary. He hadn't believed me any more than I'd believed myself. The drive took 40 minutes, heading north out of the city into the kind of neighborhoods where houses had gates and security systems that cost more than my annual salary. We finally turned onto a private road that wound through old-growth trees, the headlights cutting through darkness so complete it felt like we'd left the world behind. The house appeared like something from a dream or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. It was modern, all glass and steel in sharp angles, built into the hillside so it seemed to float above the trees. Lights glowed warm behind floor-to-ceiling windows, and I could see multiple levels, terraces, the glint of what might have been a pool. "Welcome to Caruso Estate," Sarah said dryly. "Try not to break anything expensive." She led me through a front door that opened before we reached it. More security, I assumed, and into an éclairé entrance hall that made my entire apartment look like a closet. Marble floors, floating staircase, artwork on the walls that was probably worth more than I'd earn in a lifetime. Dante was waiting at the base of the stairs. He'd changed since this afternoon, now wearing dark jeans and a gray Henley that should have made him look casual but somehow didn't. Power wasn't something you could dress down, apparently. "Elena." He nodded to Sarah. "Thank you. Check the perimeter, then get some sleep." Sarah disappeared, and we were alone in the vast, beautiful space. I suddenly felt very small and very out of place in my jeans and sweater, with my overnight bag clutched in one hand like a security blanket. "You came," he said. "Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might be smart enough not to." "Maybe I'm not that smart." Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, perhaps, or respect. "Come. I'll show you to your room." He led me up the floating staircase to the second floor, down a hallway with more art and expensive-looking sculptures. My room was at the end, a space bigger than my entire apartment, with a king-sized bed, sitting area, and windows that overlooked the forest below. "The bathroom's through there," Dante said, gesturing to a door on the left. "There are clothes in the closet if you need them. The house has secure cameras, guards, sensors on every entrance. No one gets in without my knowledge." "What about getting out?" He held my gaze. "You're not a prisoner, Elena. You can leave whenever you want, but if you do, I can't protect you. And if I stay, then you're safe. I give you my word." I wanted to ask what the word of a criminal was worth, but something about the way he said it, absolute, unshakable, made me believe him. "Why are you doing this?" I asked instead. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Dante was quiet for a moment, and I watched something complicated move across his face. "My sister was your age when she died," he said finally. 26. Beautiful, stubborn, always convinced she could handle herself. She got caught in the crossfire of someone else's war, and I wasn't there to protect her. My chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just be smart." He moved toward the door, then paused. "There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry. The gym is on the lower level. And Elena?" "Yes?" His eyes met mine, and the intensity in them made my breath catch. "I meant what I said earlier. You don't deserve to be a victim. And as long as you're under my roof, you won't be." He left before I could respond, pulling the door closed behind him with a soft click. I stood in the center of the beautiful, terrifying room, and finally let myself feel the full weight of what I'd done. I was in the home of a mafia boss, under his protection, tangled in his world whether I wanted to be or not. And the worst part was the small, traitorous voice in the back of my mind that whispered I'd never felt safer. Some cages are made of glass and steel, and the promise of protection. I was starting to think I'd walked into mine willingly. I couldn't sleep. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, and every shadow felt like a threat. At 2 a.m, I finally gave up and pulled on the robe I'd found in the closet silk. Expensive, definitely not mine, and padded downstairs in bare feet. The house was dark except for low lighting along the baseboards, creating just enough illumination to navigate by. I found the kitchen through trial and error, a massive space of white marble and stainless steel that looked like it belonged in a magazine. I was trying to figure out the espresso machine when a voice behind me said, "You'll flood the countertop if you press that button." I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. Dante stood in the doorway, wearing only sleep pants that hung low on his hips. In the dim light, I could see the definition of his chest and abdomen, the hard planes of muscle, and something else, scars. Several of them. Pale lines against his skin that spoke of violence survived. "I didn't mean to wake you," I said, forcing my eyes back to his face. "You didn't. I don't sleep much." He crossed to the espresso machine and began working it with the ease of familiarity. "Coffee or something stronger?" "Coffee's fine." He made 2 cups with economical movements, then gestured to the stools at the kitchen island. I sat, and he slid one of the cups across to me before taking the seat beside mine close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "New place. Strange bed. The knowledge that someone wants to hurt me for reasons I don't understand." I wrapped my hands around the warm cup. "Pick one." His mouth curved slightly. "Fair enough." We sat in silence for a moment, drinking coffee at 2 a.m. like this was normal. Like we were normal people instead of a bartender and a mafia boss playing some dangerous game. "I didn't understand. Tell me about your sister," I said finally. Dante's expression shuddered. "Why?" "Because you brought her up. Because I think you don't talk about her enough." I met his gaze. "Because maybe I want to understand you." "Why would you want that?" "Because you're asking me to trust you with my life. And I need to know if you're someone who deserves that trust." He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he set his cup down and stared at it like it held answers instead of coffee. "Her name was Gabriella," he said. "She was 2 years younger than me. Smart, fierce, always questioning everything. She hated what our family did, hated the business, wanted nothing to do with any of it. But she got pulled in anyway. She got killed anyway." His voice was flat, emotionless, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. A rival family wanted to send a message. They didn't care that she was innocent, didn't care that she'd spent her whole life trying to escape our world. They just cared that killing her would hurt me. Did it work? He looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes made my breath catch. "Yes." "What did you do?" "What do you think I did?" His smile was cold, terrible. "I went to war, and I won." The words should have scared me, should have sent me running back upstairs to pack my bag and call Marco and get as far from this man as possible. But all I felt was a strange, unexpected ache in my chest. "You can't save everyone," I said quietly. "No, but I can save you." He turned on his stool to face me fully, and suddenly the space between us felt charged, dangerous. "And I will, Elena. No matter what it costs." "Why?" The word came out barely above a whisper. "Why me?" "Because when I looked at you that first night, behind the bar, I saw someone real, someone untouched by the ugliness of my world, and I thought..." He stopped, something flickering across his face. "I thought maybe if I could keep you safe, it would balance the scales. For Gabriella, I'm not your sister. No." His hand lifted, and I felt his fingers brush against my cheek with a gentleness that seemed impossible from a man like him. "You're something else entirely." My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. This was dangerous, more dangerous than Viktor Popov or the Bratva or any physical threat. This was the kind of danger that came from inside, from the way my body leaned toward his, like gravity had shifted, from the heat pooling in my stomach at his touch. "Dante," I said, and didn't know if it was a warning or a plea. His thumb traced along my jaw, and I saw his eyes darken. Tell me to stop. I should have. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to pull back, to remember who he was and what he did and all the reasons this could only end badly. But rationality had left the building somewhere between the gray sedan and the secure phone and the moment he'd promised to protect me. What if I don't want you to stop? I heard myself say. He leaned closer, and I could feel his breath against my lips. Then we're both in trouble. Maybe I don't mind trouble. His mouth curved against mine. Liar. Then he was kissing me, and the world narrowed to the pressure of his lips, the heat of his hand sliding into my hair, the way he tasted like coffee and something darker, something that felt like falling and freedom all at once. I kissed him back with a desperation that should have embarrassed me, my hands finding the hard planes of his chest, feeling his heart racing under my palms. He made a sound low in his throat, almost a growl, and pulled me closer, until I was half off my stool and pressed against him. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That was a mistake, I said. Probably. His forehead rested against mine, and his voice was rough, wrecked. Are you going to regret it? I don't know. I pulled back just enough to see his face. Are you? No. The certainty in his voice made something flutter in my chest. But I should. You should be as far from me as possible, Elena. Nothing good comes from getting close to me. Then maybe I want something bad. His laugh was short, almost pained. Be careful what you wish for. He stood abruptly, putting distance between us, and I felt the loss like a physical ache. You should sleep. Tomorrow we start figuring out why Victor's watching you. And what are we? I asked. After that? He looked at me with eyes that held too much emotion and not enough hope. We're a mistake waiting to happen. But God help me, Elena. I'm gonna make it anyway. He left me in the kitchen, surrounded by marble and silence and the lingering taste of his kiss. And I sat there in the darkness, touching my lips, and wondered at what point I'd stopped being a prisoner and started being something far more dangerous. Willing. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee, drifting up from somewhere below. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then memory crashed back. Dante. The kiss. The way he'd looked at me like I was salvation and damnation wrapped in one. I showered and dressed in my own clothes, needing the familiar comfort of my jeans and a simple black sweater. When I made my way downstairs, I found Dante in what appeared to be his office, a room dominated by a massive desk, multiple monitors, and windows overlooking the forest. He wasn't alone. 2 men stood with him, both studying something on the desk. They looked up as I entered, and I felt their assessment like a physical touch, measuring, evaluating, deciding if I was a threat or a liability. Elena. Dante gestured me forward. This is Marcus and Luca. They handle security and information gathering for me. Marcus was older, maybe 40, with gray threading through dark hair and the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen everything. Luca was younger, nervous energy barely contained, fingers drumming against his thigh. Ma'am, Marcus said with a slight nod. I almost laughed at the formality. Just Elena is fine. We found something, Dante said, his tone all business now. He pulled a folder from the desk and extracted several photographs, spreading them across the surface. These are surveillance photos Victor took. Of you. My stomach dropped. There I was, captured in grainy long-distance shots leaving my apartment, walking to work, inside the bar through the window. The dates in the corner showed he'd been watching for almost a month, and I'd never noticed. But it was the last photo that made my blood run cold. It showed me standing outside a restaurant I'd never been to, talking to a man I didn't recognize. Except I must have recognized him, because in the photo we were clearly mid-conversation, and I was smiling. I've never seen this place, I said. Or this man. When was this supposedly taken? Dante's expression was grim. 3 months ago, July 15th. I searched my memory and came up blank. I was working that night. Tuesday is always my late shift. Check again. He pulled out his phone and showed me something, my own social media account. A post from July 15th showing me at a friend's birthday dinner, at the exact restaurant in the photo. That's impossible. I don't remember. I stopped, because the photo on his phone clearly showed I had been there, but I had no memory of it, none at all. Who's the man? Luca asked, tapping the photo. I don't know. Elena. Dante's voice was gentle but insistent. Look closer. I forced myself to study the grainy image. The man was maybe 50, well-dressed, distinguished-looking. There was something about his posture, the way he held himself. And then it hit me. Oh my God. The words came out as barely a whisper. That's my uncle, my mother's brother. But that's impossible. He's been dead for 20 years. The room went silent. Marcus and Luca exchanged looks. Dante's jaw tightened. You're sure? He asked. I've seen photos. My mother kept one on her nightstand until she died. Same face. Same. I trailed off, because this was insane. But he died in a car accident when I was 6. I went to his funeral. Did you see the body? Marcus asked. I was 6. They didn't let children. I stopped, realization hitting me like ice water. You think he faked his death? I think someone wants Victor to believe you're connected to a dead man, Dante said carefully. The question is why. Maybe he's not dead, Luca offered. Maybe he's been hiding. Witness protection, something like that. Or maybe someone's using his identity. Marcus pulled out a tablet and began typing. Give me a name. Thomas Rivers. He worked in finance, I think. My mother never talked about him much after he died. The keyboard clicked as Marcus worked. Then he went very still. Boss, he said quietly. You need to see this. We all crowded around the tablet. Marcus had pulled up what looked like sealed court documents, federal records, pages of redacted text, but one name appeared over and over, highlighted in yellow. Thomas Rivers, federal witness, WITSEC program, testified against the Volkov crime family in exchange for immunity and protection. The Volkovs, Dante said, and his voice was ice. That's the family Victor works for, the Bratva. My legs felt weak. I grabbed the edge of the desk for support. My uncle testified against the Russian mob? 20 years ago. Marcus scrolled through the documents. Looks like he was their accountant, got scared, cut a deal with the feds. His testimony put away 3 high-ranking members. The rest of the family has been looking for him ever since. But they think he's dead, Luca said slowly. Everyone thinks he's dead. So why come after Elena now? Because someone told them he's alive. Dante's eyes met mine, and I saw fury there, cold and controlled. And they think you know where to find him. But I don't. I was 6 years old when he supposedly died. I have no idea if he's alive or where he'd be or... They don't care what you know, Dante interrupted. They care what they think you know. Or what you can lead them to. So what do? We find him first. He turned to Marcus and Luca. Pull everything federal witness records, WITSEC relocations, any movement in the past 20 years. If Thomas Rivers is alive, I want to know where. And if he's really dead? Luca asked. Then we figure out who's using his ghost to paint a target on Elena's back. Dante's hand found mine, his grip warm and solid and steady. Either way, no one touches her. Understood? They both nodded and left, already pulling out phones and barking orders to people I couldn't see. Dante and I stood alone in his office, my hand still in his, the weight of impossible revelations pressing down on us both. I brought this to you, I said quietly. This danger. It's my family, my past. It's not your fault. It's my uncle who... Elena. He turned me to face him, his hands on my shoulders, his eyes intense. Listen to me. You are not responsible for the choices your uncle made 20 years ago. You are not responsible for the Bratva's vendetta. And you are sure as hell not responsible for any of this. Then whose fault is it? His smile was cold and dangerous. It's theirs. And they're going to regret ever looking in your direction. He pulled me into his arms then, and I let myself lean into his strength, feeling his heart beat steady against my cheek. I'm scared, I admitted. Good. Fear keeps you careful. His lips brushed the top of my head. But I promise you, Elena, they will not touch you, not while I'm breathing. And standing there in his arms, I believed him, which terrified me almost as much as the truth we'd uncovered. The call came at midnight. I was in the library because, of course, Dante had a library, complete with first editions and leather chairs, trying to lose myself in a mystery novel when I heard raised voices from somewhere below, then gunfire. 3 sharp cracks that echoed through the house, followed by shouting, running footsteps, and the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. I froze, the book falling from my hands. The door burst open and Sarah appeared, gun drawn, her expression hard. With me, now. What's happening? They found us. Move. She grabbed my arm and pulled me into the hallway, moving fast and low. We made it to the stairs before I heard footsteps below, too many footsteps, heavy boots, voices speaking Russian. Sarah swore and changed direction, pushing me toward what looked like a closet. But when she opened it, I saw stairs leading down into darkness. "Safe room," she said. "Get in. Don't come out until Dante or I give the all clear." "Where's Dante?" "Handling it." "Go." Another burst of gunfire. Closer now. Sierra shoved me through the door and slammed it shut, and I heard the lock engage from the outside. I stood, in pitch darkness for one terrified second, before lights flickered on, revealing a small room with concrete walls, monitors showing various views of the house, and enough weapons mounted on the walls to supply a small army. On the screens, I watched the nightmare unfold. Men in dark tactical gear moved through Dante's beautiful home like a plague, weapons raised, faces covered. I counted 6, then 8, then lost track. They moved with military precision, clearing rooms, looking for something, looking for me. On one screen, I saw Dante. He moved like violence given form fluid, precise, absolutely lethal. As I watched, he disarmed one man with a movement too fast to follow, used the stolen weapon to take down 2 more, then discarded it and kept moving. His face was expressionless, cold, the face of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. I'd known intellectually what he was, but seeing it, watching him kill with the efficiency of a butcher cutting meat, made it visceral and real, and horrifying. And still, I couldn't look away. The fight moved through the house like a dance of death. Dante's men appeared from nowhere. Marcus, Luca, others I didn't recognize, and suddenly the tactical team was trapped, caught between trained killers who knew the terrain and the trap. It was over in less than 10 minutes. The silence that followed felt loud, broken only by heavy breathing and someone giving orders in Italian. On the screens, I watched as Dante's men zip-tied the survivors, 3 of them, the rest presumably dead, and dragged them into the main hall. Then Dante filled one of the screens, standing over a man forced to his knees. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I didn't need to. I could see the ice in his eyes, the absolute authority in his posture. He was asking questions. The man was answering or not answering fast enough, because Dante nodded to Marcus and violence erupted again. I turned away from the screen, my stomach churning. This was his world. This was what I'd stepped into when I'd accepted his protection. Blood and brutality and men on their knees begging for their lives. The door lock disengaged with a click, and I spun around, my heart racing. Dante stood in the doorway, and I barely recognized him. Blood spattered his white shirt, his knuckles were split and bleeding, and something dark and terrible still burned in his eyes. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, like he'd been screaming. I shook my head, not trusting my voice. He crossed to me in 2 strides and pulled me into his arms, and I felt him shaking, actual tremors running through his powerful frame. "I thought I'd lost you. When they breached the perimeter, I thought, I'm fine." I managed. "Sarah got me to safety. They came for you." His arms tightened around me. "The Volkovs sent a kill team. They wanted you dead, Elena. Wanted to eliminate any chance of finding your uncle through you. How did they find us?" "I don't know yet." He pulled back, and I saw the fury in his face. "But I will. And when I do, there won't be enough of them left to identify." I should have been frightened by the promise of violence in his voice. Should have been repulsed by the blood on his clothes and the cold calculation in his eyes. But all I felt was an overwhelming surge of something I didn't want to name. "Take me upstairs," I said. He blinked, surprise flickering across his face. "Elena, please, I need." I didn't know how to explain it. The adrenaline, the fear, the way watching him move through violence like an avenging angel had made something primal wake up inside me. "I need to feel alive." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by heat. "Are you sure?" "Nothing about this is sure. Nothing about any of this makes sense. But right now, I'm alive, and you're alive, and I don't want to think about dead bodies or Russian mobsters or any of it." I grabbed his shirt, not caring about the blood. "I just want to feel something, other than fear." He kissed me then, hard and desperate, tasting like violence and promise. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with want and warning. "If we do this, Elena, there's no going back. You'll be mine. In every way that matters. Maybe I want to be yours. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me." Something snapped in him. I felt it in the way his grip tightened, heard it in the growl that escaped his throat. He lifted me like I weighed nothing, my legs wrapping around his waist, and carried me out of the safe room and up the stairs. Bodies littered the hallway. Blood stained his beautiful floors. The evidence of violence surrounded us, but I couldn't look away from his face, from the need and possession and dark promise I saw there. He kicked open the door to his bedroom, not mine, his, and carried me inside. "Last chance," he said, setting me on my feet. "Tell me to stop." I reached for the hem of my sweater and pulled it over my head, letting it fall to the floor. "I'm done running. From this. From you. From whatever this is between us." His control shattered like glass. He kissed me like he was drowning and I was air, his hands everywhere, mapping every curve and plane of my body with a hunger that should have frightened me. I pulled at his bloody shirt, needing it gone, needing to feel his skin against mine. We fell onto his bed in a tangle of limbs and desperation, and somewhere between the fear and the desire and the impossible reality of what we'd become to each other, I stopped thinking entirely. I just felt his mouth on my throat, his hands claiming territory, the way he whispered my name like a prayer and a curse. And when he finally made me his in every possible way, I looked into his dark eyes and saw myself reflected, there changed, marked, irrevocably his. "Mine," he breathed against my lips. "Yours," I agreed. And in the darkness of his bedroom, surrounded by the aftermath of violence, we found something that felt dangerously like salvation. Or maybe it was damnation. At that moment, I didn't care which. Morning came with harsh truths and harsher light. I woke wrapped in Dante's arms, his body warm against mine, and for one perfect moment everything felt right. Then I remembered the blood in the hallway, the bodies, the reality of the world I'd chosen. Dante was already awake, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Regrets?" he asked quietly. "I should have them." I traced the scar across his ribs, a pale line that spoke of old violence. "But I don't." "You will. Eventually." His hand captured mine, stilling my exploration. "This life, my life, it destroys everything beautiful it touches. Then maybe I'm not as beautiful as you think." His laugh was short, pained. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, which is exactly why you should run." "Too late for that." "It's never too late." He sat up, the sheets pooling around his waist, and I saw more scars in the daylight. A roadmap of violence survived. "Last night shouldn't have happened. I took advantage. You didn't take anything I didn't offer." I sat up too, pulling the sheet with me, suddenly feeling vulnerable. "Don't you dare try to make this something it wasn't. I wanted you. I chose you. You chose survival. There's a difference." "Is there?" I grabbed my clothes from where they'd been scattered across his floor. "Because from where I'm sitting, choosing you and choosing survival feel like the same thing." I dressed quickly, needing the armor of clothing, and left his room before he could see the tears threatening to spill over. I found Marco in the main hall. He stood surrounded by Dante's men who were cleaning blood from marble floors, his expression thunderous. When he saw me, he crossed the space in 3 strides and pulled me into a crushing hug. "Thank God you're alive," he said into my hair. "When I heard about the attack." "How did you hear?" "Dante called me at 3 in the morning, told me what happened, assured me you were safe." Marco pulled back, his hands on my shoulders, his eyes searching my face. "Elena, you need to leave. Now. This is insane." "I can't." "Yes, you can. I'll take you somewhere safe. Somewhere far away from all of this. They'll follow." Dante's voice cut through the hall, and I turned to see him descending the stairs. He'd showered and changed, now wearing dark jeans and a black shirt, looking every inch the dangerous man he was. "The Volkovs don't give up. They'll follow her anywhere she goes." "Then we go to the police," Marco insisted. "Witness protection, something." "The police can't protect her from this." Dante stopped a few feet away, his gaze locked on me. "And she knows it. So what's your solution?" Marco's voice was hard with anger. "Keep her here? Make her a target? Let her die in a war she has nothing to do with? My solution is to end the war." Dante's tone was absolute. Permanently. "How?" "By giving the Volkovs what they want." My blood ran cold. "You're going to give them my uncle." "No." His eyes held mine. "I'm going to give them me." The room went silent. Marcus stepped forward, his expression alarmed. "Boss, you can't be serious." "I'm completely serious." Dante finally looked away from me, surveying his men. "The Volkovs want revenge for Thomas Rivers' testimony. They're using Elena to draw him out. But what they really want is to hurt someone who hurt them. To balance the scales. You didn't testify against them. 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 You didn Luca pointed out. No, but I've cost them territory, money, soldiers. For the past 5 years, I've been the biggest thorn in their side. They want me almost as much as they want Rivers. His mouth curved in something too cold to be a smile. So, I'll trade my life for Elena's safety. No, the word burst out of me. Absolutely not. It's not your decision. The hell it isn't. I crossed to him, fury overriding fear. You don't get to make yourself a sacrifice. Not for me. I get to make whatever decision keeps you alive. And what about you staying alive? Does that not matter? Not as much as you do. The raw honesty in his voice stole my breath. Around us, his men found excuses to be anywhere else, and even Marco backed away, giving us space. Dante. I put my hand on his chest, feeling his heart race under my palm. You can't do this. There has to be another way. There isn't. Not one that ends with you safe. His hand covered mine, pressing it against him. I told you I'd protect you. This is how. By dying, by making sure you live. Tears burned my eyes. And what about last night? What about everything you said? Last night was a mistake. His voice was gentle but final. One I should never have made. You deserve better than this life, Elena. Better than me. You don't get to decide what I deserve. Someone has to. He lifted my hand to his lips, kissed my palm, then let me go. Marcus will take you somewhere safe. New identity, new life, enough money to start over. By the time the Volkovs realize I've played them, you'll be untouchable. I don't want a new life. I stopped. Because what did I want? Him? This dangerous, impossible man who killed without hesitation and looked at me like I was worth dying for? Yes. God help me. Yes. I want you. I finished. Alive. Here. With me. Something cracked in his expression. Pain. Longing. Regret. That's not possible. Why not? Because loving me is a death sentence, Elena. And I won't let you die for me. Then don't make me live without you. He kissed me then, deep and desperate and final, tasting like goodbye. When he pulled away, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm sorry, he whispered. For all of it. Then he was walking away, barking orders to his men, already planning his suicide mission. Marco appeared at my side, his hand on my arm. Come on, little sister. Let's get you out of here. I watched Dante disappear into his office, watched the door close behind him, and felt something inside me fracture. He was going to die for me, and there was nothing I could do to stop him. Or was there? Because I'd learned something in the past few days, living in his world. Sometimes the only way to save someone was to become exactly as dangerous as they were. I lasted 3 hours before I made my decision. Marco tried to take me to a safe house across town. I went willingly, playing the role of the frightened, compliant woman. But the moment he left to check the perimeter, I stole his car keys and drove back to Dante's estate. The guard at the gate tried to stop me. I told him if he didn't let me through, I'd drive straight to the Volkovs myself and tell them exactly where to find Dante. He made a phone call. The gate opened. I found Dante in his office with Marcus and Luca. A map spread across his desk showing what looked like warehouse locations. They all looked up as I walked in, and Dante's expression shifted from surprise to fury. What the hell are you doing here? Stopping you from being an idiot. I crossed to the desk and planted my hands on it, leaning forward. You want to trade yourself for me? Fine. But I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Not up for debate. I looked at Marcus and Luca. What's the plan? Meeting location? Terms? They looked at Dante, who looked at me with an expression caught between admiration and rage. Elena, go back to the safe house. No. This isn't a game. I know it's not a game. I slammed my hand on the desk, and all 3 men flinched. You think I don't understand what you're walking into? You're going to meet with the people who sent a kill team to murder me, and you're going to offer yourself as a trade, which means they're going to kill you. Slowly, probably, because they'll want you to suffer for everything you've cost them. Yes, he said simply. That's exactly what's going to happen. Then I'm coming too. So, they can kill you as well? That defeats the entire purpose. No, so I can kill them first. Silence fell across the office. Dante stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You've never killed anyone. There's a first time for everything. I straightened, forcing my voice to stay steady. You have a room full of weapons downstairs. I spent half of last night staring at them. Teach me to shoot. Teach me to fight. Turn me into whatever I need to be to help you survive this. Elena, I'm not leaving. I met his gaze and let him see the steel I'd discovered in myself. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. You protected me when I needed it. Now it's my turn. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything. My voice cracked slightly. And more than that, I love you. So if you're walking into hell, I'm walking with you. Those are your options. The words hung in the air between us, I love you, and I watched them hit him like a physical blow. His control wavered, and for a second, I saw everything he was trying to hide. Fear, hope, desperate longing. You don't love me, he said finally. You love the idea of being saved. But I promise you, Elena, there's nothing worth loving in what I am. Then you're blind. I circled the desk until I stood in front of him, close enough to touch. I see you, Dante. All of you. The killer and the protector. The monster and the man who cried for his sister. And I love every part of it. His hand came up, cupping my face with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. You're going to get yourself killed. Maybe, but at least I'll die choosing my own fate instead of having someone else choose it for me. He searched my face for a long moment, and I watched the war play out in his expression. Finally, he sighed and pulled me against him, his arms wrapping around me like he could shield me from the world through sheer will. You're insane, he murmured against my hair. Probably. I pulled back just enough to see his face. So, is this a yes? It's a, I can't stop you, can I? Not even a little bit. His laugh was pained but genuine. Then we do this my way. You follow orders, you stay behind me, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Understood. I mean it, Elena. The first sign of trouble, you disappear. I don't care if I'm bleeding out. I don't care if I kissed him to shut him up, pouring everything I felt into it, love and terror and absolute certainty. When we broke apart, his eyes were dark with emotion. We survive this, I said. Together. That's the only acceptable outcome. And if we don't, then at least I got to choose my ending. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I tasted desperation and promise and goodbye. Around us, Marcus and Luca discreetly found other places to be. When we finally pulled apart, Dante's expression had shifted into something harder, more focused. The man had retreated, and the Mafia boss had emerged. Marcus, he called. Get her a vest and a weapon. Something small, easy to conceal. You're really doing this, Marcus said, and I heard respect in his voice. She's really not giving me a choice. Dante turned back to the map. The meeting's set for midnight at the old fish cannery on the waterfront. Neutral territory, or so they claim. We'll bring 6 men, enough for a show of force, but not enough to seem like we're planning something. They'll have 20, Luca pointed out. They'll have 30. Dante's smile was cold. Which is why we're not actually walking in there defenseless. He outlined his plan, and it was brutal and brilliant and absolutely insane. By the time he finished, even Marcus was looking at him with something like awe. It could work, Marcus said slowly. If everything goes perfectly. It won't go perfectly. Dante's eyes found mine. But we only need it to work long enough. The rest of the day passed in a blur of preparation. Marcus taught me to shoot not well, but well enough to hit. Center mass. At close range. Sierra showed me how to move quietly, how to spot threats, how to stay alive in a firefight. And Dante stayed close, touching me whenever he could, like he was trying to memorize the feel of me before it was too late. As midnight approached, I stood in front of the mirror in his bedroom, wearing dark clothes and a bulletproof vest that felt too heavy on my shoulders. I looked like a stranger, hard, dangerous, nothing like the bartender I'd been just days ago. Dante appeared behind me in the reflection, his hands settling on my shoulders. Last chance, he said quietly. Say the word, and I'll have Marcus take you somewhere safe. Not a chance. Then promise me something. His eyes met mine in the mirror. If it goes wrong, if I don't make it, you run, you survive. You live a life worth living. Dante, promise me, Elena. I turned to face him properly, taking his face in my hands. I promise, but only if you promise to come back to me. Deal. He kissed me one last time, and it tasted like hope and heartbreak. Let's go change the world. We walked out of that bedroom together, into the darkness and the danger and the impossible odds. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that nothing would ever be the same. The old fish cannery loomed against the night sky like a rotting tooth, all broken windows and rusted metal siding. The water beyond it was black as oil, reflecting nothing, and the air smelled like brine and decay. We arrived in 3 cars, Dante and I in the lead, Marcus and Luca following with 4 other men whose names I hadn't learned. I was scared to learn them, scared they wouldn't survive the night. "Remember the plan," Dante said as we parked. His hand found mine in the darkness, squeezed once. "Stay close, stay alert. And Elena? I know. Run if it goes wrong. I love you." The words came out rough, like they'd been torn from somewhere deep. I should have said it before. I kissed him, hard and fast. "Tell me again after, when we're both still breathing." We got out of the car. The Volkovs were already there, dark SUVs arranged in a semicircle, men with rifles standing in the shadows. I counted 15 that I could see and knew there were more I couldn't. At the center of it all stood a man who could only be Viktor Petrov, the Pakan of the Volkov family. He was older than I expected, maybe 60, with silver hair and cold blue eyes, but there was nothing soft about him. He stood like violence personified, power radiating off him in waves. "Caruso," he called out, his accent thick. "You came." I gave my word. Dante's voice was steady, empty of emotion. "Let's discuss terms. Terms are simple. You and the girl for Thomas Rivers. I don't have Rivers. But you will find him, and when you do, you give him to us." Victor's smile was cruel. "Then maybe we kill you quickly. Maybe we let the girl live. Or," Dante said calmly, "you could accept a better offer. There is no better offer than the man who destroyed my family. There's me." Dante took a step forward, and I felt my heart stop. "I'm worth 10 of Rivers. 20. You want revenge for the territory I've taken? The men I've killed? I'm here. Take me. Leave Elena out of it." Victor studied him for a long moment, then laughed a sound like breaking glass. "You think I want just you? You think your life is payment enough?" He gestured, and 2 of his men dragged something forward. Not something. Someone. A man, beaten and bloodied, barely conscious. But even through the damage, I recognized him from the photograph. Thomas Rivers, my uncle, still alive after all these years. "We found him 2 days ago," Victor said conversationally, "hiding in Portland, of all places, living a nice quiet life. Wife, kids, didn't even change his name, can you imagine?" He walked over and kicked my uncle in the ribs, making him groan. "So now I have the traitor, and I have the niece, and I have the rival boss who thought he could play games with me. So many options." Everything started happening at once. Dante made a subtle gesture, and I saw Marcus and Luca moving, saw weapons being raised, but the Volkovs were faster or they'd been expecting it. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the enclosed space, and Dante shoved me behind a concrete pillar. "Stay down," he shouted. Then he was moving, weapon in hand, returning fire. I pressed myself against the pillar, my own gun heavy in my hand, and tried not to think about the sounds, men screaming, bullets hitting metal and concrete, the wet thud of bodies falling. Then I saw her, a figure moving through the chaos, smaller than the others, quick and deadly. She had a gun trained on Dante's back, and he didn't see her, too busy with 3 men in front of him. I didn't think, just moved. I stepped out from cover and fired twice. The first shot went wide, but the second caught her in the shoulder. She spun, her weapon swinging toward me, and I fired again. This time I didn't miss. She went down, and I felt something inside me crack the knowledge that I'd just killed someone, that I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. But Dante was alive. That was all that mattered. The firefight lasted maybe 3 minutes but felt like hours. When the shooting finally stopped, I counted 6 bodies on the ground, 4 Volkovs, 2 of Dante's men. My uncle was gone, dragged away in the chaos. And Victor had a gun to Dante's head. They stood in the center of the cannery, both wounded, Dante bleeding from his side, Victor from his leg, but Victor had the advantage of position and a finger on the trigger. "Drop it," Victor said to me, because I still had my weapon raised. "Drop it, or I paint these walls with his brain." "Elena," Dante said quietly. "Run. Like hell." "She's loyal," Victor observed. "Stupid but loyal. I can respect that." He dug the gun harder into Dante's temple. Last chance, girl. Drop the weapon and walk away. I'll let you live. And Dante dies. Obviously. I looked at the man I loved, saw the acceptance in his eyes, the resignation. He'd come here expecting to die. Had always expected to die. It was written in every scar on his body, every hard decision he'd made, but I hadn't come here to watch him become a martyr. Okay, I said, and lowered my weapon. Okay, I'll go. Relief flashed across Dante's face, followed by love so intense it hurt to see. Thank you. I walked toward Victor slowly, my gun held loose at my side. He watched me approach, distracted, and that was his mistake. Because I'd learned something in the past few days, living in Dante's world. Sometimes the only way to win was to be more ruthless than anyone expected. I dropped my gun, then pulled the knife from my boot and threw it in one smooth motion. It buried itself in Victor's throat. He made a choking sound, his gun falling from nerveless fingers, and collapsed. Dante dove for the weapon, came up, firing at the 2 remaining Volkovs who'd been hiding in the shadows. Then silence. I stood in the center of carnage, shaking, my hands covered in blood that wasn't mine. Around me were bodies and bullet casings and the remains of people who'd woken up this morning never expecting this to be their last day. Dante crossed to me, his hands framing my face, his eyes searching mine. Are you hurt? No. My voice sounded hollow. I killed her, the woman. And Victor. I killed them. Yes, you did. His thumbs brushed away tears. I hadn't realized I was crying. You saved my life, Elena. Twice. I didn't know I could do that, be that. Neither did I. He pulled me against him, and I felt his heart racing. But I'm grateful you can. Behind us, Marcus was already on the phone, calling in cleanup crews and arranging for bodies to disappear. This would never make the news. The Volkovs would simply cease to exist. What about my uncle? I asked. We'll find him. Dante's voice was grim. And when we do, you can decide what happens to him. He's your family. So are you. I pulled back to look at him. You're my family now. Something shifted in his expression, wonder, perhaps, or hope. Say that again. You're my family, my home, my choice. I took his bloodied hands in mine. I love you, Dante Caruso, and I'm not going anywhere. He kissed me then, surrounded by death and darkness, and the promise of dawn still hours away. It tasted like survival and something sweeter, the possibility of a future neither of us had dared imagine. I love you, he said against my lips. And I promise you, Elena, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing this world, choosing me. I already don't regret it. You will. Someday. When the nightmares come and the blood won't wash off, and you remember what you had to become, then remind me why it was worth it. His smile was slow, devastating, full of dark promise. Every single day. We walked out of that cannery together as the sun began to rise over the water. Behind us, the evidence of our violence was already disappearing, erased by efficient men with quiet mouths. Ahead of us was a life I'd never planned for, never wanted, never imagined I could survive. But I would survive it. With him. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes salvation comes wrapped in darkness. Sometimes love looks like violence. And sometimes the only way to be free is to choose your own cage. The bar was packed for a Thursday night. I moved behind the counter with practiced ease, mixing drinks and chatting with regulars who had no idea the woman serving their whiskey had once killed a man to save her lover. Marco's new place was smaller than Ember and Oak, cozier, but it was ours, purchased with Dante's money and my brother's dreams, a partnership that had surprised everyone. The door opened, and I didn't need to look up to know who'd entered. I felt him the way you feel a change in. Barometric pressure before a storm. Dante crossed to the bar and slid onto a stool, his dark suit perfectly tailored, his expression neutral. To anyone watching, he was just another businessman stopping for a drink. Only I saw the heat in his eyes when he looked at me. Whiskey? I asked, already reaching for the good bottle. Please. I poured 2 fingers and slid it across. Our hands brushed, and I felt the familiar spark, the electricity that had never faded. If anything, it had grown stronger, sharpened by danger survived and promises kept. How was your day? Day, I asked. Boring meetings, tedious negotiations, the usual. His mouth curved slightly. Though I did receive some interesting news. Oh? Thomas Rivers is dead. Heart attack in federal custody. Very tragic. I absorbed this, feeling nothing. Not relief, not grief, just a distant acknowledgement of a problem solved. My uncle had tried to trade information about Dante to the feds in exchange for a new identity. It hadn't worked out well for him. Shame, I said. Indeed. He sipped his whiskey, studying me over the rim. You okay with that? He stopped being my family the moment he put a target on me. I wiped down the bar, needing something to do with my hands. Besides, I have a different family now. That you do. He reached across the bar and caught my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. Come home soon. My shift ends at 11. I'll wait. And he did. Sitting at the bar for 3 hours, occasionally working on his phone but mostly just watching me work. Some of the regulars shot him nervous glances. There was something about Dante that signaled danger even in expensive suits, but no one bothered him. When I finally locked up, he walked me to my car and kissed me against the driver's side door, with the kind of passion that made me forget we were in a public parking lot. I missed you, he murmured against my lips. You saw me this morning. Still missed you. I drove home to the beautiful house in the hills, the one with the panic room and the arsenal and the man who loved me despite the darkness we'd both survived. Or perhaps because of it. Inside, I found evidence of the life we were building. My textbooks on the kitchen counter. I'd started taking accounting classes, figuring if I was going to help run an empire, I should understand the numbers. His jacket thrown over a chair, the coffee maker set for tomorrow morning. Normal things, domestic things. Things that should have been impossible for a mafia boss and the woman who'd killed for him. But somehow, we made it work. Dante found me on the terrace, looking out at the lights of the city below. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. Any regrets? He asked. It was a question he asked often, like he needed constant confirmation that I didn't hate him for the life I'd chosen. And every time, my answer was the same. Not a single one. Even when the nightmares come? Even then. I turned in his arms, looping my hands behind his neck. Because you're always there when I wake up, and you remind me why it was worth it. I love you, he said, and I heard the wonder in his voice, like he still couldn't quite believe I was real. I love you too. I kissed him softly. My dangerous, beautiful, impossible man. You're dangerous, beautiful, impossible man, he agreed, for the rest of our lives. And looking into his eyes, those dark, intense eyes that had first captured me in a locked bar at midnight, I knew it was true. I'd walked through fire for him, had killed for him, had chosen a life of shadows and secrets and the constant awareness that danger lurked at every corner. But I'd also found love in the darkness, purpose in the chaos, strength I never knew I possessed. Some people spend their whole lives playing it safe, staying in their lane, never coloring outside the lines. I'd crossed every line that existed and found paradise on the other side. Come to bed, Dante said, taking my hand. Tomorrow brings new challenges, and we'll face them together. Together, he agreed. And as we walked inside, leaving the city lights behind, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Because sometimes love isn't soft and safe and easy. Sometimes it's dangerous and dark, and absolutely worth dying for. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it's worth living for instead.